Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Well, if looks could kill, this watch would live up to its nickname. Today, we're discussing the A. Lange Sohne Lange 1 reference 101.035, the Darth Vader. You can see and you can purchase this platinum Lange 1 on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right-hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this, with additional accessories included in the sale, high-resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Lange 1 Darth Vader in full platinum. Now, I'm not one for nicknames, especially Star Wars nicknames in the world of watches. To me, it always seems a little bit silly, but if ever there were a watch that warranted the moniker, it's this one. It's just drop-dead good-looking, and it feels the part on the wrist. The size is traditional. It's the 38.5mm Lange 1 case that's been with us since 1994. It's reasonably slim. All things considered, 10mm with a generously sloped dome-style bezel will wear well and will not impede any dress cuff or tight formal sleeve. Now, the watch from Lug To Lug is wearable across a broad range of wrists. You don't have to be 2 meters tall and cloaked in armor to wear a watch 47mm across the wrist with generously downturned lugs that trace the arc of the forearm. The watch is substantial, however. The case fairly deep, the lugs fairly broad, adding considerably to the mass of the platinum employed in this timepiece, so you feel that this is something truly special on your wrist. It doesn't quite weigh as much as a Star Destroyer, but make no mistake, it's a TIE fighter. Now, the watch features a traditional, centrally bolstered, black rectangular scale alligator leather strap with a monotone stitch and distinct folded edges. It has a strong central spline character line that gives it a little bit of body and strength, and on the underside, a matching black calfskin in natural grain. You see Lange's traditional retaining bar platinum pin buckle here, platinum to match the case. The retaining bar is effectively a feature for those of us who have smaller wrists and like to buckle down to the last 2 or 3 perforations. Oftentimes a watch can become pinned or stuck on the wrist when it's truly buckled tight. By retaining the strap above the bottom or pivot point of the buckle, it makes it easier to remove a tightly buckled strap. Lange thinks of everything. But first and foremost, they think of how a watch can be made more beautiful, and in this instance, it's by adding strong contrast. Contrast between the horizontal character lines where bezel and caseback abut the mid-case, as well as polish and satin finish. You can see polish in the bezel, the caseback, even the flanks of the lugs, in contrast to the satin finish of the caseband. You'll also note just how subtle Lange can be, as the watch features satin finish to match on the external face of the pusher that adjusts the panorama datum, or the double-digit oversized date. Contrast is also present and correct on the dial, where you have countersunk primary and subsidiary time dials, as well as a beautiful white gold frame to the oversized date. Now, I will say that the pusher, at what would conventionally be 10 o'clock, is like operating a fine chronograph. It has that same silky, buttery sensation, a tactile pleasure. It's also a great bit of theater to show your friends, truly rendering the date a complication rather than simply a feature. Now, you'll also note, again, we're all about contrast and detail, that there's a very subtle concentric circular grain to the hours and minutes scale as well as subseconds, and they just slightly kiss and overlap to unify the time-telling components of the dial. Also, applied white gold indices and stylized Roman numerals. The watch features beautiful alpha hands in miniature rather than the heavier Dauphine or the spare and somewhat inadequate baton, which would be overwhelmed by the sheer visual power of this watch. Alphas are a perfect choice. There's a power reserve scale up and down at 3 o'clock, and it traces the 72-hour twin mainspring barrel power reserve of the Lange manufacture caliber L901. Now, this is the very first caliber developed by the modern A. Lange Sohne. 3-day power reserve, silky manual winding. It operates at 21,600 vibrations per hour. Quick set for the date via pusher, hacking seconds or stop seconds for synchronizing to a reference time. It is beautifully executed, but it's the finish and the finishing style that define this movement. Now, it's one thing to finish a watch beautifully. Vacheron Constantin, Laurent Ferrier, Patek Philippe, all within the confines of the Canton of Geneva, accomplished that. But what Lange did was they began to establish design language for a modern German watch patrimony. And now, over 20 years since the reestablishment of the company, so many of the features of what we call glasuta watch finish are actually standards created by Lange during the 90s. Now you can see the first is the 3/4 style plate, like an old pocket watch of the 19th or early 20th century, the golden age of Saxon watchmaking. You see the jewels of the barrels and train set in chiton. Now what you get out of that is the appearance of a pocket watch with the golden chiton held in place by screws. Back in the day, it was an easier way to remove stones, pivot stones, for maintenance. Today, it can still be used for that purpose, but its primary purpose is to simply be beautiful. You'll also note that the bridge itself, as well as the plate, are executed in what's known as Maishor in Switzerland, or German silver in glasuta. It's a combination of nickel and copper, and unlike silvered rhodium-plated brass, it's natural untreated metal, which has that beautiful rich golden hue thanks to the copper, which becomes more intense with time. You can see there's black polish on the cock for the escape wheel, as well as the swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism. Beautifully reflective, but only in one direction. It's the highest standard of optical polish, and you can see all of the screws have been kiln-fired and oxidized blue, not chemically dyed. The balance cock itself is the final touch, hand-engraved by an artisan who works for the company, typically from home. The 6 primary engravers can often be told by their specific engraving pattern, and it's said that if you take the watch back to the factory, information linking your individual timepiece to the original artisan can be obtained from the archives. This is a wonderful way to get into the world of Lange, whether you want to start a collection, complete a collection, or simply have an A.Lange Sohne reference in your collection. This is